to mention international law, Geneva Conventions and so forth, which states that, like, if you capture someone as a prisoner of war, for instance, he still has a right to review his status. It's basically a sort of trial, you know. And by the way, prisoners of war are, in the normal sense, are different from the people we keep grabbing in the war on terror. I mean, just the name there should indicate that this is not a normal war. This is the, you know, normally two countries at war, right? And war on terror is the word war broadened. You know, the way people will talk about the war on drugs or something. War on poverty. It just means a big effort. Just because we're making a big effort on something doesn't mean we get to disregard fundamental rights. And as I was saying, though, for prisoners of war, typically they're wearing the frickin' uniform of the enemy. They absolutely admit to being the enemy. Before, during, and after the capture. Do you work for, you know, whatever country we're fighting? Oh yes, in fact I do. I'm a sergeant. You know. So the guy's basically pleading guilty there. Even that guy, by the way, is not allowed to be tortured. Even the Nazis got trials. People forget this. Nuremberg. Have you never heard of Nuremberg? At the end of the war, now granted in the middle of combat you can't very well have a trial, because everyone's shooting each other. And I understand that, by the way. If some guy grabs a gun and starts shooting at soldiers, and they shoot back, okay, well, you know, that's what we call that a battlefield situation. Okay. By the way, cops can do that too, even though it's not a battlefield, but if some guy just runs into, like, a mall, with, you know, and starts shooting people, cops are allowed to shoot that guy. It's a combat situation. Okay. But if that guy drops his guns and surrenders, or if that guy was never shooting anyone in the first place and was just walking around in the mall, the cops cannot shoot him. Right? You arrest him. And say, hey, we have suspicion that you were the murderer from last week or something. And then blah, 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 trial. Under our concepts of terrorism and the need for defense, we've decided that trials are not necessary. I keep telling you about Guantanamo. And I mentioned the Supreme Court and how they ordered habeas corpus reviews. A large majority of the people who got reviews were released. A large majority turned out to be totally innocent. Or, more particularly, shall I say, a large majority turned out we could not prove them to be even halfway guilty. Right? Which means, you know what we've been doing? We've been abducting innocent people. Why does everyone hate us, you wonder nowadays? Look, to some degree, there's people who hate America for no good reason, right? And they're just absurd. And I can understand that. There are other people who hate America because we keep abducting innocent people and throwing them in jail forever and torturing them. Even the Nazis got trials. Came to the end of World War II, and we had absolutely terrible people on our hands. But we brought them to Nuremberg, and they had a right to speak in their defense. And some of them were acquitted, because it turns out some of them were innocent. Granted, Nuremberg had several problems, you know, but there were trials. I was saying before that a cop cannot run into a mall and just point someone out as being a murderer and blow his head off, right? If that guy's not, you know, already holding guns or acting in a threatening way. If a guy's just walking around, if a guy's like freaking eating ice cream, you can't shoot him. Except under our new concepts involving terrorism and so forth. Yes, you can. I've been thinking of making this video for quite a while. The thing that really set it off was a few months ago. It was confirmed in national media outlets and everything, and not denied by the White House. No, it was confirmed that we now have a presidential assassination program. That is to say, an assassination program approved by the president. we reserve the right to shoot people that we deem to be terrorists, even if they are not actually threatening anyone in an immediate sense. So the executive branch, you understand this? Entirely separate from any judicial proceedings, no trials, not even a stamp of approval from some judge somewhere. No, no, no. The executive branch decides so-and-so is a terrorist. One of those so-and-sos is an American citizen, even. I'll post up the links. And now if we see this guy eating ice cream, being completely unthreatening, we reserve the right to blow his brains out, right then and there. An immediate death penalty. Because you don't want to give trials to terrorists. Except, of course, not every person is a terrorist just because they've been accused of being terrorists. There are people at Guantanamo who have been cleared for release. You know what that means? It means we brought them to jail, and then the government itself, not just some other judge, the government itself in this case, even the Bush administration, has cleared certain people for release, said, never mind, we got the wrong guy. And then the Obama administration came in and confirmed this. Yeah, we got the wrong guy. And he's still in Guantanamo. Why? We're not sure how to let him go, apparently. And various members of Congress have spoken out and said, don't release him onto my soil, you know, or my state or district or whatever. Because he's a terrorist. No, he's not. He's a formerly accused terrorist. Not even an accused terrorist anymore. A formerly accused terrorist. We accused him, and then we decided, never mind, wrong person, made a mistake, sorry. And yet we still think of this man as a terrorist. Don't we? It's insane. It's absolutely insane. The things that George Bush did. Torture. Extraordinary rendition, which is basically the kidnapping type stuff. Warrantless wiretapping. You know, this whole process of getting a warrant to wiretap, no, we just didn't bother with that. And so forth. Negligence, or probably deception, you know, lead up to the Iraq War, which has led to a lot of people dying. Things that Bush did. And then Bush was gone. And came Barack Obama, and I voted for him. And I thought he was going to be our great reformer, you know. When he first came on the national scene, I was really inspired. And then, as time went by, I became somewhat less inspired. I'd find little cracks in the armor, things he said that were quite true. And he was always better than McCain, and better than Hillary and Edwards. So I voted for him. And still, at the time of voting, I thought he'd be a great reformer. And he hasn't been. Not at all. The man hasn't kept some of his most basic promises. The man is a constitutional scholar. And he spoke vividly about defending the country and the country's principles at the same time. And what has he done? Has anyone been prosecuted for torture?